Okay, so we're live. So welcome to another Don't Be a Zombie, How to Regain Your Purpose and Fulfill Your Dreams. So guys, so far we've actually done a lot for only a couple of times getting together. So first what we did was we talked about like, okay, how do you let go of your past and really embrace the present and as that as being the foundation to your future, because the reality is if you have certain barriers that you have created or have been created, I guess you could say, for you based on past experiences, man, that is really gonna hold you back, right? So you really need to acknowledge your frustrations, you need to acknowledge your fears, you need to acknowledge those things, write those fuckers down, and then say, okay, why ultimately, why do I have them? But also, how do I get rid of them? Right? Let it go. Consider them garbage. Toss those babies in the trash. So that's one. And then we said, okay, now how do I understand the impact of my past experiences on my current mindset? So I already kind of brought you there, right? So we wrote down the frustrations, wrote down our fears, we wrote down those things that really feel like, you're standing in front of a wall, right? And you can't get past that wall. So, with that, uh, you know what those are. And so now you say to yourself, okay, how do I get past those? And you in some cases you may write down the opposite of what that is. So, if you feel like um if your ultimate goal, let's say, is if your ultimate goal is to buy a car, and you're having a hard time buying a car. Well, why do you want a car? What are other ways that you can fulfill what the real end game is for you for buying that car, right? Is it that you want a way of getting around? So maybe you don't need a car. Maybe you need a scooter. Maybe you need a bike. Maybe you need to, take the train or take the bus for a little while. And so you can save up money so that you can then fulfill your dream of having a car, right? And now we're going to talk about understanding the nature of change and its impact on your growth. So, well, actually, no, change that. We did talk about this too. So, part of regaining of rediscovering your purpose, it's acknowledging what you've actually accomplished, right? So again, we talked about that, and I got to tell you, I know at least for me, that is so hard. And for a lot of people, I know I keep saying, write it down, write it down. Doing that, acknowledging it, acknowledging those accomplishments that you've had. It could be as small as, you know, you revised your resume, excuse me, to focus on those things that you will really help bring you forward and really are focused on what your dream job is, right? So, like, let's say if you want to become a uh, the head of marketing. So, what have you done in your past, in previous roles that really support that? And maybe it's a combination of going back and looking at head of marketing roles on LinkedIn or at the companies that you've always wanted to work for, and seeing thematically what functions do they have and what have you done in your past that is similar to those activities, so that it really demonstrates that you can do that work, right? Especially if you're looking to move from one type of career to another. um, or it could be something as simple or silly as, you know you called your mom and you hadn't called your mom in like weeks. And some people may not consider that an accomplishment. I personally think anytime you're actually acting against something, it's an accomplishment. So again, we walked through that last time, really just writing down, acknowledging all those things that you've accomplished, and so that you can see your path of successes. And you want to keep doing that on a recurring basis. You're not just going to look at your past and say, oh, what have I done? You want to also do that additional work on minimally a weekly, if not a daily basis of what have you accomplished, right? Okay. So now let's talk about acknowledging and releasing the baggage of self-doubt and limiting beliefs. Whew, now this can be a lot. Not that the others weren't a lot, but this can be a lot. So I'm going to be honest, nearly every day I still experiencing limiting beliefs. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror and think anything from how the hell did I gain 30 pounds overnight? I mean, so I didn't. I tend to be body dysmorphic. There's a lot behind that. We don't need to talk about all that. I mean, I can if you want me to, but right now I won't. And sometimes I look at the mirror and I say, God damn, you are fucking amazing. And sometimes I look in the mirror and I ask myself, can I do it? Right? Like, this is going to be, I know it's going to be a tough day. How do I get through this? So, how do I ignore those limiting beliefs, or how do I at least get past them and drive forward? Again, first, it's acknowledge them, right? I mean, there was a time in my life not too long ago when I would think I was the ugliest being on the planet. I virtually hid in the shadows so no one could look at me. I mean, the last thing I wanted was to draw attention to myself. I never really thought I would ever have a boyfriend. I never thought I'd get married. I didn't think it was possible for another human being to find me attractive. Uh, I grew up in a household where if you were overweight, um, then that by default meant that you were absolutely hideous. And I grew up having a lot of weight issues. My body weight fluctuated dramatically the whole time I was growing up. There was also my mother had this same body dysmorphia. She grew up in a household where you couldn't be smart and attractive. And in the household she grew up in, she was the smart one. And unfortunately, I took on a lot of those similar beliefs that you couldn't be smart and attractive. And I was always in the top 99 percentile of classes growing up. So that pretty much set that up for me, right? And also understand that when I was 9 years old, I mean, my mother kicked me out of the house. Uh, she was screaming that I was a demon child and just declared that she never wanted to see me again. She literally took my clothes, threw them in a trash bag, tossed them out of the top floor window. I mean, if you want to get melodrama, we can go there, right? She called my father, told him, "Get this demon out of my house." And my father just took one look at me and was like, uh, said to my mother, "Look, you don't want to do this. She's incredibly ill. Just look at her." And she was like, "I don't care." Again, freaking out. What she didn't understand was I was actually in the middle of a rather severe medical condition, peritonitis, and which means that you have an abdominal infection. And in this case, my appendix had actually burst, and the infection was spreading throughout my abdomen. So my father somehow got me out of the house. I actually couldn't stand up straight. I was in so much pain. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this before, but there's a point when you're in so much pain, your body just stops responding. Like your legs don't move, your arms don't move. It's as if to as a way of uh, saving yourself, your your um, your body, you can't feel anymore, right? And all I knew is like my legs wouldn't move, my arms wouldn't move, and I couldn't stand up straight because every time I tried to stand up straight, I mean, the pain just was racing through my body. So somehow my father got me into the car to the emergency room. And again, actually, where he took me to was the clinic across the street from Cooper Hospital. And the clinic They, uh, after having me wait in the waiting room, because that's what you do when you're poor and you don't have medical insurance. But they finally then did get me on a gurney, took me across the street to Cooper Hospital. I actually needed to have 2 major surgeries to get rid of the infection, that had already spread throughout my abdomen. I literally died on the operating table. I actually woke up as well, and, they were in this wild panic, because I woke up during the operations, the first operation, and, as I said, I literally died on the operating table, not long enough to be brain dead, but not long enough to flatline. And they had to resuscitate me by a team of absolutely amazing doctors. I mean, obviously, I'm still alive, as you can see. So the reason I'm telling you about all this, and I was in the ICU, and they had to take me back in for another uh, abdominal surgery because they actually hadn't gotten all of the infection the first time around. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is because the surgeries left me with such severe scars across my midsection because they literally ripped me open from here all the way to right above my pubic line, and I had a scar a primary scar that was about that thick and that long, right? So clear down, as well as scars that went across, because when they had sutured it closed, all the sutures had actually ripped back open. And as it healed inward this way. So my stomach basically, if I was lying flat, it looked like this because, like down here, that's where the primary thick scar was, and then the rest of this would be how my abdomen was. And the scars were so severe, and I had several other scars as well, but that was the primary ones, or were the primary ones. Uh, they were across my midsection. Like, I couldn't change my clothes in front of others for fear of being ridiculed. And believe me, I was much more than ridiculed. Um, when I had returned home from the basically spending a summer in the hospital, after all those surgeries, and I went back to school. I still actually remember this. We were in, how they line you up in class, and we were in line and, doing the 2 by 2 thing. And one of my classmates who had been told she had to stand next to me, uh, somehow she had found out that I had spent the summer in the hospital, and her family had found out as well. And her mother had told her she wasn't allowed to touch me, she wasn't allowed to be near me. And so this young lady then declared that she couldn't hold my hand, she wasn't allowed to stand next to me, and she then went on a spree and spread the rumor that I was contagious. Um, no one, literally no one would come near me. I mean, and it wasn't just the ridicule, it wasn't just the "I can't be near you." Uh, it was the horror in people's faces when they would look at me, that, like, how could I be standing? Like, how dare I be there? And, like, the fear to come near me. I mean, I just, after she went on that spree the next day, no student in our school, as I said, would stand near me. They wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't touch me. Um, no one would sit near me in class. And the teachers, again, they didn't necessarily understand why I and they didn't really, at least that I remember, nor did they respond, right? Because if you think about it, 9 years old, you know, large class, in the inner city, they're just looking to survive themselves, right? Well, one of my classmates told me that her mom said she wasn't allowed to come near me in case she caught whatever it was that landed me in the hospital. And again, a lot of really just horrific um, statements were made. I mean, I was ridiculed in the I couldn't play, right? Like when they let you out for recess, I still wasn't really physically capable of running around, and that for these kids and for the adults who had heard the rumor, um, that just proved that they were right. That they could not, that I was clearly contagious. There was something so severely wrong with me. Well, I went home that day. I mean, I was just sobbing. And at that point, I was actually living back with my mother again. My father grew up in a time period where the belief was that children were raised by their mothers, period. And my parents had been divorced for a couple of years by then. And so when they let me out of the hospital, they actually sent me back to my mom. Well, my mother was so infuriated that anyone would spread such rumors about me that the next day she went to the school and she met with the principal and met with my teachers, and she absolutely demanded that they make things right and sent notes home clarifying what had happened to me and demanding that other children actually, not isolate me, right? Not ostracize me. Well, the principal not only sent home notes, but he held a meeting with the entire school and to tell them that I wasn't contagious and they shouldn't be afraid of me. Well, I mean, needless to say, the psychological trauma of being kicked out by my mother and all that led up to that moment resulted in my belief that I could never be loved, that I would never be attractive enough. I mean, that, again, as well as those beliefs that my mother had been raised with and that I inherited, just excuse me, really, really caused me to truly believe that I just was the most hideous thing on the planet. And again, I could absolutely never be loved. And that's just a start. I mean, even though I was in advanced classes for most of my life, again, I just believed I was garbage and not worth anything more than what someone would give me, like a charity. I believed if they gave me anything, it was because they felt sorry for me, not because I had earned it or deserved it. Um, so I actually, it took me years of really coming to terms with all this. And like, I still remember the day that I think I was like 12 years old, and something had happened in school that was pretty shitty. And I came home and I just decided, you know what? I I think I'm pretty cool. Like I don't do things to harm other people. I do things because I want to help people. I'm not doing things from a center of hate or meanness or anger. I'm doing things because I think it's the right thing to do. And if I'm wrong, that's fine. Just tell me why I'm wrong. But I decided that I liked me and I loved me. And I decided that that was enough. And for me, that helped me open a door, excuse me, so that I could then reassess my own limiting beliefs and how they compounded themselves. So now let's talk about what you can do to help you with your limiting beliefs. So, first, I want you to review those list of limiting beliefs that you have and ask yourself why. Why do you have them? What caused them? Where did this belief originate? And once you've got that down, now ask yourself if there are examples of the opposite being true in your life. And I want you to write those down. So, for me, my mother going to the school and demanding that they make things right is a tremendous example of being loved, cared for, and protected. When I was in the hospital in the ICU, at one point they thought I was going to die, and so they put me in a program that I think many people are familiar with, where they basically provide your last wish. And they had asked me what my last wish was, And mine was I just wanted to hang out with my best friend, Heather. Now, Heather's father was a musician. He was a folk singer. And so what they did is they arranged for him to perform on the children's ward. And then while he was performing in the children's ward, they snuck her into my room so that we could play for a couple of hours. Again, another example of being worth it, being loved, being cared for. And I have, thousands of other examples like that. But now I want you to do this. You need to do this work. Write it down. Whatever that limiting belief is, excuse me, sorry, write down those examples of when others have done the opposite, right? Where you have completely disproven those beliefs. And with that, I want to wish you a wonderful holiday if you do celebrate Thanksgiving, and I will see you next time. Ciao.